We've just had a fairly major hurricane going through the southeast and through London and through the eastern region.
What happened last night? Was the Met Office taken by surprise?
Certainly by the severity of the gales, yes. It's very hard to forecast such intense winds very far ahead.
Did you drive into work this morning and see trees all over the road and think, oh hell?
So I cycled to work this morning and that was much easier.
hasn't been to it yet, so I better tell him later on rather than now.
Have you any news, Mr. Chairman?
No news at the moment. Trees are blocking the way in.
What do you hope to achieve from this meeting?
I don't know, I've been through quentions and then mouse blood.
television.
Can I ask you how the meeting went?
Well, the Home Secretary is going to give an interview, actually. So,
Can you not say in general terms, though, whether does it look as if the emergency services coped well?
I think the emergency services coped very well. I think the Home Secretary will give you a full report. We went round our various departmental responsibilities to see what the extent of the damage was and what we could do. And I think what we heard from the Home Secretary, as you'll hear, is that the emergency services coped very well indeed, sometimes in very dangerous circumstances.
Is there any more
I'll
action?
leave that to Douglas. He has a fuller picture of the ambulance and the police.
What's your...
Could I ask you how the meeting went?
It went very well. We all discussed with each other the damage and the problems in our different areas of responsibility, and the arrangements, the emergency arrangements, seemed to be working well. We discussed if there were ways of improving them. I think it was a very constructive meeting.
Did you
I understand the Home Secretary is going to report and have a press conference.
Do you think it would be very different if this storm had occurred in the daytime?
It's hard to say, but what I think is beyond doubt is that we've just had a fairly major hurricane going through the southeast of this country and through London and through the eastern region. Winds of 100 miles an hour by any standards, which is what they were on the coast, and 94 in the city, represent a severe form of hurricane.
And how do you think the emergency services reacted to that?
I think they're coping extremely well, and obviously there are problems and they will be dealt with, but we're all desperately anxious to help people to get back to normal as soon as we possibly can.
And when do you think we'll be completely back to normal?
What's the concern about the complete lack of the Met Office forecasting a storm of this scale?
Well, I think that the severe winds were expected, but they weren't expected to be of quite this severity until later last night. I think another thing that fell, the barometric pressure fell very, very substantially. I believe to an all-time record low, which itself helps to generate very, very high winds. And now I think I'd better get away, if I may.
Thanks very much.
Let me just ask you one more question. What is your top priority now?
Well, to get the electricity supply back to the customers and as soon as possible. People depend on electricity for their work, for their safety, farmers, people in their homes to keep warm. So that's the top priority. And as I said earlier, people are being brought in from all over the country to help the regions which are worst affected.
Yeah, here we go.
Weather centres will themselves have got in touch with television and radio in their area. It's fresh.
So I can't predict when it's going to come out.
What they're joking about.
It's not going to come out, is it? No. I have to keep it running and see what happens. Yes, that would be good. Go on.
Can I just show you one shot? I want. Mr. Morris, what happened last night? Was the Met Office taken by surprise by the severity of these gales?
Certainly by the severity of the gales, yes. It's very hard to forecast such intense winds very far ahead. I would say on most occasions you expect to get about 5 hours notice at the most on that kind of situation.
And how much notice did you have last night?
Well, in this case we began to realise about 2100 yesterday evening that these sort of winds were developing across the Bay of Biscay. In the next 2 hours the warnings were issued through London Weather Centre. But of course it's so late at night, a few people I guess could react anyway.
I think the first warnings actually went out to the public through the London Weather Centre after midnight. By that time everybody's in bed.
Most people are, yes, that's true.
Can anything be done to improve this situation?
Very hard to say. I think all you can possibly do in the future is to indicate that such winds are a possibility. But then you see, we don't normally want to cry wolf on these situations. They obviously are very rare indeed. We don't normally issue warnings for ships at sea more than 12 hours ahead for the very same reason. And
Admittedly, with hindsight, do you think you could have interpreted the charts differently?
I don't think even with hindsight we could have been much more confident about issuing such a strong, a warning of such strong winds.
You see, the public says with all this modern equipment, with satellites, with weather ships, we get overtaken by snow, by surprise, gales devastate the south of England, and you can't give any warning till about an hour before it happens.
Well, I hope that's a slight exaggeration. We do try and give quite reasonable warning of snow. Of course, with snow it's more difficult because rain can fall at a temperature of 0, the same as snow. But in this case, it's very interesting that we had very few ships reporting the weather across the Bay of Biscay yesterday evening. In fact, there were hardly any ships at all between Brest and the Azores, and at the crucial time. So not until about 2 or 3 hours before the storm hit southern England were the forecasters able to actually decide that there were such strong winds developing.
See, none of the newspapers this morning, who get their information from you, are actually forecasting any more than wind. The word gale isn't mentioned.
Yes, it's true that we didn't actually stress the wind, that's absolutely correct. We did expect some strong winds around, but not as extreme as certainly occurred.
How do you feel about that?
Obviously a bit sore. We would like to do better, of course, every time.
Can you change the procedures at all, do you think? In the light of this?
I think possibly when we've done a very thorough study of the situation, we might be able to react more quickly. It's a question of alerting people to risks of situation rather than the straightforward black and white situation. If somebody had rung up and said yesterday evening, what are the chances of having a very severe storm tonight? It wouldn't have been told no. he may have been told there is a slight chance of it happening, yes. And that may be useful information to somebody.
Did you drive into work this morning and see trees all over the road and think, oh hell?
So I cycled to work this morning and that was much easier.
Thank you very much.